So we can take questions if anyone would like to, or it doesn't have to be a question. It can be a share that you think others would like to hear. I'm sure. Yes, Ellen. Hello.
Hi. First, I just want to thank each of you. Like, I loved the variety of things that you shared and the depth from where each one of you shared from. It's just beautiful. And I'm just moved to share from what you said, Tanya. I'm just moved to share my experience of the past year and like my deep gratitude to this community and to Sid and the teachings. From day one, I knew something was off, way off in what I was hearing. And I actually had two people like scream bloody murder, like two of my closest friends, when they were less than 20 feet from, like they were 15, 20 feet from me. It was like such a wild experience. Both of them had been isolating at home, and we never had like real lockdown. I was living in Arizona at the time, and it was just wild to have like my best friend be in so much fear that she, like at the top of her lungs, screamed. I'm like, something is really wrong. And then I had my experience with symptoms of the virus, and that in itself is a whole webinar sharing about how I, the calm that I had. And then I thought I was going to be better on a certain day. And then when I wasn't better, I was like, oh, well, that person had this experience. That's how long I'll be sick. But it was just really funny when I think back about it. And then I spent many months having really so much confusion. And that's what I would talk about, was the confusion. And I now see that the confusion was so serving for me, because if I had really shared what I knew, I'm really not sure that I would have communication with my lifelong, friends. I really don't. And I just see the wisdom of that, because at the time, I think I would have shared from, you need to know, and this is important. And over the course of the past year, I've had some really beautiful insights about separate realities that has allowed me to have two children as far apart on the spectrum of everything, but especially COVID and the vax. I don't want to call it vaccine because it's not. The COVID and the injection. And to be able to be in conversation with both of them, like, that's just, like, if nothing else, like, that is like enough for me. It's so beautiful. And then I, we've had many, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has heard some of our original teachers share things like, you can say anything from the heart, words spoken from the heart or heard from the heart, or George Pransky has his own words for it. You can really say anything to anyone when you, and I've seen how that has been coming forward for me. And now I can say what feels really true and what I know, not only from my heart. I think I could say from my heart before, but totally free of attachment that anyone changes their mind. Like, that's what's radical for me. That's what's radical for me. And just seeing that when you have a view of the world, or you have a view of anything, you act from that view. And it can't, that's just the way it works. It can't work any other way. So, and to go back and, like, even a couple years ago, I would have been like, you didn't stand up for your truth, you didn't speak your truth. And it was like, the wisdom that I didn't is so beautiful. And the wisdom that I can now is so beautiful. So thank you for the space to share a deeply moving
Thank you, Ellen.
experience for me. Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you all.
I feel that a lot. I know a lot of us have like been in the winds of change in terms of who's prepared to speak to us and not prepared to speak to us, and how we navigate that. So amazing.
Yeah, and for me, that it just doesn't matter who's prepared and who's not prepared now. It doesn't matter, and that's so beautiful. And the inner freedom that I have from that. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying to see. Could you mute yourself? Did you mute yourself? Thank you. Would anyone else? I see there's one question that just came up, so I'll answer it. And about citizens in Israel, are they forced vaccinated? But, not forced quite, but almost. Coerced. Coerced is what's going on now. A lot in the workplace, and there's green passports that aren't really legal, but the media talks about them as if they're legal. So everyone's just sort of enforcing them in certain places. But yes, so interesting indeed. But with that, what helps me is remembering that when we face a situation, and it seems like there are two options. So struggle against this injection, or submit to coercion, then that's wrong. There aren't two options. There are infinite options, and I fall back into that place when it feels like a struggle. So it is quite intense, but hopefully the dawn of something new. So yes, anyone else would like to raise their hand? Or, like we said, it doesn't have to be a question, it can be a share, something that you've seen in this last year. Anyone?
Mark, go ahead. I see.
Oh, I didn't see his hand. Sorry, it's not popping up at the top.
I'm sorry, I'll just put my hand up.
No. Okay. Okay, I was looking at the participants list. Okay, yes.
I just wanted to share that with the people who I've been speaking with, I'm becoming more aware of that we're all on our own individual journeys. And if we accept that we're on our individual journeys, then that's where the freedom comes, as opposed to clumping everybody together. Because what I am noticing is the more that I would say I do my journey, then I'm finding my connections through life. And that's what's brought me here with you guys. It's like, wow. See, so I'm realizing that people are just getting so caught up. But if I allow them to do whatever they want to do, then they will find their own way too. Because I'm taking it at, it's like I'm jumping on other people's thing because I'm trying to fix everybody. I've got something to give you. I want to try and help you. But the more I try to do that is the more I lose out on who I am and what I'm here for. And at the end of the day, how I look at it all is that we think we're in control, but we're not. And if we remember that, then it will all be taken care of, because what will be, what won't be, will not be. So I just wanted to say that and set that in there.
Thank you, Mark. I totally agree with that as well. And that was my, when I went to medical school, that it was all about, I've got to go there and learn how to cure everybody and make the world all better. And I came out of it going, I can't do that. They haven't told me how to do that. And so I then spent years and years and years looking for, how can I do that? You know, and missing the whole point that you can't do that. You're never going to do that because you're not in control. And it's taken me, well, wouldn't like to say how many years to discover that, but yeah, I totally agree with you.
I do agree. The only thing I would add to that for myself is I do get caught up in it, because I'm aware of that I am living the human experience.
Yeah.
So being aware of that kind of gives me a little kind of free get out of jail card like in the Monopoly game. So yeah, it's great. Just going in and out of it, just being aware of it. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with everybody, because that's what I've seen just in general within myself, and just sharing. Thank you anyway. Thank you.
Can I just bounce off of something that Mark said, and I think it speaks to the question in the comments. Can you expand on infinite options? I run a program with John L. Macadam. I know I see a couple of familiar faces that have, but we run a program that was based on research we did in 2017. And we took the research, actually the study's published now in the, it's in APA journal. It's like one of the first 3 principles based research publishings, but we basically took a group of people, because both John and I recovered from chronic fatigue, and it was insight based. It wasn't through all the other things we tried, you know, for me, it was like, you know, flower essence therapy and shamanism and NFP, you know, everything that has an initial, I've done that, you know, but it was through insight, and he had the same experience. So we thought, and we had clients we were working with who also recovered, you know, when their doctors told them, this is as far as you're going to go, and pacing all the things they had to do. And we don't know what causes it. You might live with it for the rest of your life. And they went through the program, and even people who were sick, ill, like bedridden at times for 40 years, within 8 weeks were saying, I'm not sick anymore. And we didn't do any testing. We didn't do any supplementing. It was all this psycho-neuroimmunology kind of thing. And we run a group now called Foundations of Health. And of course, over the last year, there's been, because these are people who are prone to health anxiety anyway, it's their health anxiety, as Dominic says, the taking over for God, you know, that has made them ill. And so there are a lot of questions around the vaccine and whatever. And I've done my own research, and I love Zach Bush and, you know, germ theory versus terrain theory and all that stuff. But I give an example of a friend of mine who, she had ovarian cancer, and she went through the same RNPA, the patient advocacy program that I went through. And she had a decision tree about, you know, there was what her doctor told her she had to do. And then there was what else is going on all over the world about what to do for this kind of cancer cell and this kind of, you know, whatever. So she had this decision tree about surgery or not surgery. And if yes, surgery, then this kind, and leave the ovary or take it, you know. And then she had, okay, then a treatment. They want me to do chemo, and what other kinds of things are there? So she had this whole tree that she spent 2 weeks, and she had all this information and knowledge in her head. Like so many of us have all this information and knowledge in our head about the vaccine and COVID-19 and what's true and what's not true. Here's a stack of peer-reviewed research that says this, and here's another stack of peer-reviewed research that says the opposite, and the stacks fight each other. And we fight each other about what stack we're for. Well, she had stacks about, you know, her cancer treatment, and she still didn't know. She didn't know what to do. And then one morning she woke up and she was putting on her socks, and she's like, oh, I know what to do, like that. And it's the same thing, how, you know, Mark was saying, like, I have to fix people. I have to show them the truth. Well, that's when I get in that, I'm like, well, that's my arrogance. That's me thinking that they don't have in them what I have in me. and you will know what to do, whether it's a get a vaccine or not get a vaccine, whether it's to wear a mask or not wear a mask, whether it's whatever. It doesn't come from the knowledge we've gained in our heads. That might inform us, but really, it just makes us really busy. And how many times in your life have you thought you were going to do something one way and you spent weeks and weeks, what should I do? I have to make this decision. Should I go? Whatever. And you ended up in the moment doing something totally different because it doesn't come from here. And that's where I think the infinite options comes from, because we are designed to live in the moment. The universe moves our bones in the moment. So you can try to sort through all the information in the media and who's right and who's wrong and what to do. The infinity comes to you in the moment. So that was just my response and my take on that question.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen. And yeah, I would just add shortly that it feels like, you know, the rule for me that I've learned is when it feels like we're stuck, we're not. Because it goes back to what Dominic was saying, is that the feeling is our divine guide. So when it feels like, oh my goodness, it's going to be like the fight and the struggle, or it's going to be the capitulation and the coercion, then that's the answer's not there, and it's not there. And I know that with this, you know, it's such a tender issue, and for me now it's very tender, and I get lost, especially when it's coming to the kids, my kids. But the answer isn't. The feeling is there to guide me. That's my divine guide, and that will lead me. And it's like what Karen said with the woman, that, you know, it's okay not to know which way then to walk, because we can just know that it's not. The answer is not in that, and it's not in that. It's not in that feeling of tension and fear of one way or the other. And we can sit in the unknown, and something new will come. And with me now, it's a kind of a focus on freedom that may lead me somewhere. That's sort of bubbling up and coming to sort of center of the focus. But it's okay not to know. And again, the feeling is our divine guide. So when we feel stuck, we can know that's not true. So if anyone else would like to add anything. I see we've got another question. Just from the panel, you know, just feel free to unmute yourself and chip in. But here we go. Anna, yes. You're unmuted.
Hi.
Yes. Hi.
I am not sure if I got a question. Well, first, hi, Karen, and everybody that through the last year have been through me on my schizophrenic up and downs. I'm still here, which is good. I don't know if it's a question of what it is, or even a justification of what I have done, or I think in the world of the 3P, there is a lot of ideas. We think that it comes from just one thing, but anyway, and that confuses me too, you know. And at the end, I just follow what I got inside. And I think individuality, like Mark is saying, is quite appropriate here. I have, you know, I had a horrible year. My mom died. That's one of the worst things. But I think the worst for me has been when I have to choose about the vaccine or not, because I'm diabetic. And they gave me a letter. I live in England, saying that I could do my appointment to have the vaccine. And I always thought I didn't want to, because I'm always been scared. I don't think I even grab. I think in the 3P world, I'm still grabbing things intellectually, if you know what I mean. So there's a lot of fear in my life. There's a lot of. I discovered recently that I'm a control freak since I got my diabetes. So, you know, controlling everything that gets in my body it was something really, really scary. So I received this, and then I decided not to do anything. Also, I feel really isolated, because around me, nobody shares what I think. And I feel a little like Tania, like everybody's calling you names, or you just don't want to talk about that. Just, I don't know. So anyway, I decided not to have it. And then they sent me a letter saying that I am critically vulnerable. Then I have to say that to the schools where I work. And then they said to me that it's better if I get the vaccine. And the thing is, I work in 3 schools. In 2 of them, I got a 0-hour contract. So if I don't work, I don't receive any money. So it's been a really tough decision. And I think it has affected even more than the death of my mom. I'm sorry, Mom, but I just feel like that. Because it was like, oh my God, they are getting away my freedom. You know, it was something. And I know in my life, I've been discovered through the last year that surrender for me, since the beginning of the pandemic, has been like, well, and I think you had enough of this trying to control everything. So I just need to surrender or whatever it is. And it was still in my mind when I was making the decision. But I was thinking, I can surrender to God, but shall I surrender to the government? You know, and then I realized that there was 2 things in there. One, sometimes you just have to surrender to the form, to surrender to the formless, to God. And second, the surrender for me was, I looked at that like if I was losing something. And I don't think that is the case. I think if I am in innate health, I'm not losing anything with the surrender, you know. That's it. That for me was quite good, you know. It was horrendous when I had the vaccine. They put me in the vaccine I didn't want because I heard the stories and this and that. I may still have all the fears and everything. It's getting better, you know. I can smile. I can talk a little about when people ask me, how are the side effects of the vaccine? And, you know, but yeah, but I think for me, just for me, my possibility it's a little like, I think in this world, you got 2 possibilities, follow God or don't. And for me, follow God was having that peace of mind that no matter what happens in my body or what I put in my body, I'm going to be all right. And at that point, I didn't see any more options, infinite options. For me, that was the only one. And that's it. That's what I have done. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Anne, thank you so much, Anna. And I think, Anne, maybe do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, a couple of things on. One is, you know, Karen was talking about Anita Morjani's story, and the thing that always, the thing that always, I love her story, and the thing that always sticks out in my mind is that when she had a near-death experience, when, you know, she was dying, she was absolutely dying from this cancer. There's no way physically she could have recovered officially, but she did. And when she was recovering, when she came round from this terminal coma where her body had gone complete shutdown, and when she came round from it, the doctors were so amazed that they, and now she's getting better, that they decided they would give her chemotherapy. And part of her story is she remembers the nurse coming into her room with a mask on and gloves on and a bag with a skull and crossbones on and sticking it in her arm, and her knowing, having recognized who and what she really is, you know, having recognized her true self in this near-death experience, and having previously been a really, really anxious person, she was like, it can't do me any harm. Whatever they put in me can't do any harm. And just like Ian was saying before, it's all energy, and energy, everything is just energy. And like Dominic said, it's all consciousness, and it's affected by how we think. It's just that there is no wrong. There is no wrong decision. You can't make a wrong decision. You know, you make a decision, it's a right decision, and you can't make a wrong decision. It's consciousness living through you. It's, yeah. So whatever you do is going to be the right thing. It's, and yeah, whatever you do is going to be the right thing.
Yeah. And Anna, I love what you share, and such a powerful insight that, you know, how you saw that it really doesn't matter. There isn't a one right way. In fact, with the insight you have, it sort of transcends any options in the world of form. Like, you take it, you don't take it, you go for a third alternative. Your well-being does not come through action. Your well-being is not coming from any action, anything that you are doing here. Nothing from outside of you, and nothing you do is causing your well-being. You are blessed with well-being. That's all there is to it. And the only thing really from an action perspective you can do is you can resist it. That's sort of the option you've got. You can resist it. And we are blessed with a guidance system, an innate wisdom, that in any moment we resist it, we will feel it. And if you don't feel it, don't worry, it'll get worse. If you don't pick up on it, don't worry, it'll get worse, because you'll get angrier and more upset and more of that. And it'll just get worse, because it gets worse and worse and worse to wake up to the fact that you're under some delusion here, that some action you're going to take actually has any effect on anything. It is all caused from inside. It is all a matter of your own harmony and ease with all that you are. Doesn't matter what's going on here. As you were telling the story, I was thinking about, you know, that is really that feeling of resistance or protest or pushing against anything that is apparently out there that is affecting me is the problem. That is the only problem. There's not another problem. So here I am, life is good, everything's great, and I can do what I like. And then they put a stoplight at the end of my street so I can no longer just drive out. And who are they to and now I need to stop, and they're all agreed. It's like a conspiracy. They're all agreed that on red I need to stop and on green I don't. And they're taking my freedom. And what problem do I have? Just my own thinking, my own resistance. Who's taking my freedom? It's all made up. I'm saying that. And so, and if I can't live my life in ease and stop at that stoplight when it turns red and green, and it wasn't my choice, and I didn't have a say about it, and I didn't even vote them in who put that there. But it takes nothing away from me unless I think it does. And then there's my problem. There's my problem right there. Dis-ease with that. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's humorous and enlightening as always, Dominic. And I just wanted to, something came up for me. I think I'm a skeptic, and I'm with it, and I want proof. You know, Abraham or thoughts become things or manifestation, whatever, prove it. You know, so I go down rabbit holes of, you know, I'm Ernest Holmes, Neville Goddard, Napoleon Hill. Then modern times we have quantum physics, Joe Dispenza, and this guy Joseph Selby, who wrote a book called The Physics of God. And I'm saying this because about fear. You know, there's so much fear about getting the vaccine, and there's so much fear about not. Well, take it a little bit more nebulous into the miracle of belief and thought. Joseph Selby's book, I highly recommend. You probably have to listen to it like 3 times to really let it sink in, but it's all about quantum physics or quantum mechanics and how the science behind how our beliefs manifest. And in one chapter, he talks about people with multiple personality disorder or condition, right? And I'm kind of combining things, but there was this one woman that he talks about who had like 7 different personalities. And what would it be, the measuring of the eyes? An optometrist or ophthalmologist, the one who measures, right? So they had one on board when they were doing this research, and they measured her eye as she would go from personality to personality. One was nearsighted, one was farsighted, one had, like a different eye condition. One personality had an anaphylactic allergy to bees and was also allergic to poison ivy. When she went into another personality, the poison ivy reaction would disappear. One personality thought it was a heroin addict. So this vessel, same vessel, belief that I'm a heroin addict, and track marks would appear on the arms. And then she'd go into another personality and the track marks would disappear. One of the personalities had blue eyes. The rest had brown. The color of her iris would change. That is how fluid, one could eat peanut butter and die, and then 10 minutes later, the other one could eat peanut butter and be fine. So how do we think that we're actually now belief, we are beholden to belief. So that's a fun for me. It's like such a fascinating area to explore, because I don't have multiple personality disorders, so I can't control my belief, but there's something there that also brings me peace, that through insight, we can transcend anything that might harm us, and when we say harm us, we're only talking about this physical thing, I love, I listened to the first webinar that you did, and Anne went through this exercise, and I do the kind of something similar. I call it weightless island, and I won't do it now, obviously, but when you strip away your mind, your past, your future, your present, even your beliefs and what's next, what you're left with can't get sick. It can't die. It was here to witness, I'm here. It was here to witness, the body is gone. And that is who we really are. And to me, that is the most important fundamental thing. The only thing we need to work on when we're afraid is seeing who we really are.
Mhm. I tend to forget quite a lot.
We'll forget. We'll forget, but then we remember, and that's,
yeah.
And as long as we remember that we remember, then we remember quicker, it seems, most of the time. So.
It's the ABCs, like in trauma and in intensive care, when you get that, some disaster happens and you're like, you get that when in danger, when in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout kind of feeling. And you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And we're always told ABCs: airway, breathing, circulation. Look at the patient. Is their airway open? Are they breathing? Is their heart pump? Take a pulse. So you can transcend that. Well, in this, when we get afraid, go back to the ABCs. Who am I? As Dominic says, where's the tension? Where's the friction in my nervous system? What am I feeling? Oh, right. And then there's a feeling of relief. That's what you're looking for. You can be afraid, but relieved. It's not my job to fix this. You can be sad with a feeling, depressed, ill, with a feeling of relief. Oh yeah, that's not my job.
Yeah, I think this, for me, the vaccine has been wake up call somehow. And there's nothing else you can do. Please just do it. It was like the universe somehow decided she's not listening, she's not listening, she's not listening, she's not listening, boomba. And then I got this. So I can see it as for me, as a new way of seeing things, I wouldn't say a blessing at the moment, but I will get that point, hopefully.
Thank you, Anna. I'm just wondering if Ian wants to add something, because we haven't heard from Ian for a while. Ian, would you like to?
I'm just enjoying the show. Now let's take another question, and then I'll maybe respond.
Okay. So we'll go with Gail. Hi, Gail. You're unmuted.
Thank you. And Ian knows me. So, I was curious about what Karen was talking about, and the lady with 7 personalities, and how things change so radically when her personality changed. And I mean, this is where I always stumble, is if I've got unconscious beliefs running somewhere, it's hard to, I can't, it's not like a thought that I've clocked that's passed through my mind and I don't engage with, or I choose not to engage with, or maybe I do engage with. And some beliefs maybe are obvious to me, but there might be others that are running things that I'm unaware of. And how, if that's affecting my health, how do I don't know, I don't even quite know how to put the question even, but how do I address those? Or is it just a question of time, and they will bubble up to the surface, and then I will see them for what they are, and there's the opportunity for change in that moment? So it's difficult to know. I mean, Ian knows I've got this sort of apparently non-functioning leg, which progressively got worse over time, and I've given up trying to fix it. I've stopped all the things I was attempting with it, and yet there's still something that's not moving, and it's difficult to know where to go with it. And it is something around this: is there some unconscious belief that's saying something somewhere that means it's not changing as yet? Does that make things clear somewhere or other? So I'll throw it out there, see what happens.
I feel like I'm talking too much. I can scroll. Like, to me, for the lucky ones who have multiple personality disorder or get the near-death experience, and transcend those unconscious beliefs like that, for the rest that's one thing, but for the rest of us schlubs, you know, we just kind of have to wait for the insight. But where you don't suffer, to me, it's, you got the rest of your life, you know. And the reason we suffer is because, okay, here's where I am. I got a bum leg, or I got this illness, or I got this, and here's where we've made up that we need to be. Here's the world where the world says we ought to be. If there were no other people here on this planet, there would be no this. Adler calls it, he says all problems, all suffering comes from interpersonal problems. If there was no one else on this planet, like if you were an animal and you had a bum leg, you have a bum leg, but there's no suffering because you're not trying to get here, you know? And that's what Dominic taught. There's this gap between who you truly are and who the world says you ought to be. And in here is suffering, depression, and inflammation and whatever. But something happens through insight. Like with me, it was the way I'd been living my life was white noise. And it came down to a roar where I could see it. And that changed everything. I didn't do it. You know, that changed, the gap collapsed between, oh, I have to be here in order to not be left behind. And then there was a calling home to myself. And I felt myself for the first time, even with my illness and my dementia and, you know, your bum leg. But there's an immense peace when that gap collapses and you're okay. Oh, I've found myself. And that's all you ever need. And you have the rest of your life, because there's gaps all over the place. You know, we keep encountering our unconscious beliefs, the lies we've been told by the world of who we ought to be. And your whole life, you know, you see those through insight. So that's my answer. It's nothing you can do. It's not your job, you know. And when you try to get the insight, you know, or transcend the belief, that's where you suffer. I need to transcend the belief so my leg can get better. you know,
Mm.
and there's a relief that it's not your job.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I've accepted a lot about it, and I think there's still that, as you say, that part of me that would like it to be different. And I can get on with my life when it's done.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah. Thank you.
I think I wasn't going to say anything then, but I think, like Dominic was saying, that the guidance is in the feeling. So when you're thinking about not so much in unconscious, you don't even have to think about unconscious thoughts, because the more you think about what is going on unconsciously and how do you feel when you think about unconscious thoughts, you know, if that's giving you, it's not so much what's in the unconscious thoughts, it's thinking about unconscious thoughts that's giving you, taking you in the direction away from who you really are, rather, because you can tell that by how you're feeling. If you just focus on, forget about unconscious thoughts and just focus on the feeling, am I in alignment with my infinite self, or am I struggling against it? Am I trying, like Karen just said, struggling against and trying to be something different? And just go with the feeling, just keep focusing on noticing the feeling, and then you can see what happens when you just notice the feeling, rather than following the thought and thinking about the thought and trying to work out what's the unconscious thought, and, you know, just forget about the unconscious thoughts. I would.
Okay.
Can I offer yet another response to this this question? There's a lovely book which I've read several times. The author is Robert Johnson, and he's a Jungian psychologist, and it's an autobiographical account of his own life. It's called Between Heaven and Earth, I think is the title. And at the beginning of his life, when he's, I think, a teenager or possibly even younger than that, he's almost killed. He's run over, you know, as he's crossing the road. His leg gets crushed by a vehicle, between a vehicle and a lamppost, and has to be amputated. And he loses a lot of blood. He goes in and out of consciousness, and, you know, it's touch and go as to whether he'll actually survive. He does. He survives, and but obviously he's left with a lifelong wound. And he subsequently develops an interest in psychology and ends up in Zurich training with the great Carl Jung, and becomes a well-known Jungian analyst and writer, which gets him interested in archetypes, you know, the kind of, some of the sort of energies that are not personal. We can experience them personally, but it turns out that it's something that shows up in stories and myths and legends throughout time. So it's something that's bigger than us. And one of the stories that fascinates him is the story of Parsifal and the quest for the Holy Grail. And of course, those of you who know that story, a significant part of the journey is when he comes across this chap that's known as the Fisher King. And the Fisher King is a kind of a king, but he's not really a very effective ruler, because he has a wound in his thigh which will not heal. Now, I'm not going to tell the whole, it's a big story, it will take us all week, but the reason I'm mentioning this is just as it came to mind was that what Robert Johnson came to see through his own insight, really, and his own wisdom, was that he had the perfect wound, that he'd been wounded just enough and just in the right place and just in the right way to enable him to do what he needed to do in this life. That was as an older man, that's the perspective that he came to see. And I just want to throw that in there, because to me it's a helpful perspective, or it can be, and it's not the perspective we normally take. But sometimes, you know, we do end up with things happening in our physical form that we can't change, we can't necessarily do anything about it, and we can sort of live with it in a resigned way, you know, which means we're not really accepting it, or we can entertain the possibility that it's the perfect wound, at least in this moment. Who knows? Doesn't mean to say You know, in some cases, it may be just for now. But there's something about that when we expand our perspective away from the idea that it's something wrong, something that shouldn't be happening, you know, something that should be healed by now. And we invite in the possibility that actually this is exactly what I need. That's why it's showing up.
And that touches something in me, and you know, that does touch something in me. And I do know one of the insights I had on the training was about thy will, not my will. And I might have seen that, but whether I've manifested it yet is another matter. So I think it's a long process. Well, it's not long. It'll be as long as it needs to be for me, I guess. You know, whatever that means. But there is something in that I know it's forced me to slow down. I know it's done various things that have all, you might say, had good benefits. And there's still a bit of me that would love to be striding the Malvern Hills, you know, and I can't. So, you know, it's one of those things. But I do hear what you're saying, and also, you know, what Anne and Karen also said. So thank you. Yeah, more sort of little bits of something going in to touch. Yeah, very good story. Thank you. Mm.
If I could say too, from what Ian said there is really great. He talked about a perspective that feels better. And remember I said who you are two perspectives, really. You are sometimes in harmony with all that you are, the perspective of all that you are and all that is. And then necessarily, not like there's anything wrong with you, necessarily, we are focused into this physical body. Otherwise we couldn't like shop and do things, right? So there are these two perspectives. And then, and Ian just spoke to a perspective that feels so much better than the other perspective. Which the hint then says, oh, wow, that perspective is probably closer to that of my source. Right? So because there's some relief in the perspective that Ian spoke about the same condition. And this isn't about like finding the right perspective and damn, what is a perspective and what's the perspective? It isn't about that. Like I got to think my way through to it. But Sydney Banks said, it's like follow the feeling, listen for a feeling. And all I know is that my perspective is damn painful. My perspective is limiting. It's hurting me, right? The perspective of this is limiting me, I don't get to do what I want and all of that. So I know from the feeling of it I know that this is not how God thinks. Here's a way I'll say this is God loves being you exactly the way you are. So under these conditions, with the body you have, living the life you're in the place you're in, under those circumstances, God loves this, just loves this. That perspective of your life under your conditions right now is only one of joy and pure potential and possibility. That's God's perspective as God expresses into this physical existence through you. Not always your perspective. Mm-hmm. But that is the perspective of the source within you. Just loves to be you for this period of eternity. The one time this will ever happen, it'll never happen again. Once you reunite, this opportunity will never happen again. So God just loves this. And so the further you are from the perspective of God as God lives your life, the more dissonance you will feel, the more disharmony you will feel. There is nothing to do about it other than to recognize it and then to realize, Sydney Banks said, listen for a better feeling. Follow the feeling, listen for a better feeling. Well, I'm still walking. That feels a bit better, right? I still, generally I've got pretty good health in many ways, right? So I'm just, and here's the thing, this isn't as common in 3 principles, but a law of attraction, which a lot of people think is about getting cars and things, it is the energy, which is that which is like unto itself is drawn, an energy of thought, right? As I think, an energy of thought, which is a better feeling energy, that has a momentum to it. And that has a momentum to it. So as you follow in the relief, that momentum will bring more thoughts in that frequency. It's like tuning into the frequency, the channel that God is on, which is in a very high frequency. And that leads me to where you started, and you said subconscious. I think there must be something subconscious going on, and that's what it is, because I can't get out of this, because I think there's something happening, right? And so the only thing affecting you is an active thought. It is only conscious thought. Now, we could be oblivious to conscious thought, but there's no hidden thoughts. This is one of those cases where if it was that deeply hidden, you couldn't perceive it. You couldn't experience it. So anything you experience is conscious, right? But again, we could be oblivious to the mix of thoughts that are there, but nothing to worry about. The more I go searching for it, where do you think my attention is? The more I go searching for, I think there's some limiting thought I have, and I might have come from my past, or maybe it's something that happened, and I go searching for it. My calibrating of me right now in my consciousness is calibrating toward this limiting thought. And that is the channel I go on. So how do I instead, move off the channel and begin to calibrate to the channel that calls me, the only channel that is calling me? And as I calibrate there, follow the feeling, I move to that channel. Nothing on the other channels matter. Do you ever worry about, if you tune into the classical station at 97.3, does anybody ever worry about whether the hard rock is going to come through? Like just sneak up on you all of a sudden as the station is on? No one worries about it because they are aligned and focused and tuned, right? You don't have to worry about any other thoughts that are going on when you're tuned in over there. So I don't know if that's helpful, but
yeah, thank you. Yeah,
thank you.
It's all grist for the mill, as they say, sort of going in the melting pot. And yeah, thank you all very, very much. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I just, to follow on from what Dominic was saying about subconscious stuff, I find life is so much easier and more peaceful when I embrace my moron. There's whole shelves at Barnes and Noble about hypnosis and subconscious belief and whatever, and I'm people much smarter than me who have researched this and compiled all this information, and we've all seen the diagram of the iceberg and this, and then there's like a little dot right here, that's your conscious thinking, and the rest is your programming and subconscious. Well, that's like a really scary way to live, is like, I'm just programmed and running a program and whatever. Well, they might be right, but prove it. Show it to me. Show me my subconscious brain and my subconscious thought that it's like, again, I like to be a moron in that kind of stuff, because the only thing I can control is my conscious. And I don't even know for sure. I've been told that I'm from Lemuria and I'm an alien or whatever. Oh, that's nice. That's lovely. Some psychic told me I'm like a descendant from an alien or whatever. That's great. That's fun to think about. So is the fascinating world of the subconscious mind. But unless an alien lands in my cul-de-sac, knocks on the door and say, time to go home, kid, time to go back to Lemuria, I don't know that's true. All I have is my felt experience. So why would I get all wrapped up in, oh my gosh, is this a subconscious pattern and I have to fix it, when it's not even my job? I like to say, if only I can get back, I'm trying to quote myself and I can't do it. If only I could get back all the years I spent trying to extend my life. Like, if only I could get back all the worry and strife I spent trying to improve myself. and reprogram myself when I don't even know if that's true. What's really true? That's a great question for everybody to ask. What do you know that's true? I'm going off on one, but just this one thing that's also funny. Like, have you listened to the Sydney Banks, like the original tapes? We listened to it at Super Coach Academy at the end. They played like the original stuff before he had the words mind, consciousness, and thought. Talk about perspective. Some people in the room are like melting in their chairs and going, oh, this is so great. Just like the feelings washing over me. And I'm like, did this guy have a stroke? I mean, does anybody actually understand what he's saying? I'm looking around going, does anyone else think like me? But that was my felt experience then. That was like my reality, and not caring what everybody thought of me. Like, what is really true for you? Because Sydney Banks' truth, what he was talking about, that's not my truth. To be honest, I know very little that's true for me. And what Dominic says, a feeling, it's such a relief to not worry about what's true for everybody else and what you have to abide by. What's your lived experience? I don't know where that came from, but you know, I'll let you know if the aliens come get me.
It came through just in time. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Like, there are no more hands up, so I'm encouraging people to raise their paw or just unmute themselves. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a question, it can be a share. Would anyone from the panel like to take the mic?
You can always volunteer someone.
Anyone would like to?
Seems like everyone's gone into stunned silence here.
Oh, hi, Vicky. Hello. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Vicky.
My internet's a bit unstable, so hopefully it will stay whilst I share something that was pretty cool that I noticed yesterday that kind of is along the theme of health and is kind of really fresh at the moment. So I've been doing loads of decorating in the house and had all the windows open yesterday and just a t-shirt on, and it's pretty cold. It's been pretty cold this weekend. And so I was holding the paint tin and painting away, and I suddenly was aware that my hands were really cold. And that's kind of like nothing new for me because I have had Raynaud's for as long as I can remember. So for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's when the extremities get numb, and it can basically, it just like would happen at any point, summer, winter, didn't have to be cold. But I suddenly became aware of it and I was like, oh my God, I haven't had, like, all winter, I haven't got numb. My hands haven't got numb. My feet haven't got numb. I've been in the sea twice and they didn't go numb. And I hadn't even been aware that it hadn't happened until it happened, if that makes sense. And it just kind of blew my mind. And I guess it's sort of still emerging for me. But what I saw in that is I've lived in a state of fight or flight through my own bonkers thinking. And it's only because of the 3 principles that I realized what was happening. And I don't know, it's just that whole kind of, it wasn't in my awareness that Raynaud's disease could be anything to do with that. Like, there was no connection whatsoever. But clearly there's a connection because I still have bonkers thinking, but clearly not as bonkers thinking. And in that, the fight or flight has, the adrenaline has kind of gone down enough so that I'm not living in this constant state of blood being sent away from my extremities to more important places if you want to run away from a tiger or a scary thought. And it's just, yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it's just another thing for me. I've stopped reacting to foods that I used to react to. And this is just another thing that kind of has blown my mind this weekend, because I hadn't even, it wasn't something I was trying to fix, or it just wasn't anything that I thought was fixable. I thought it was something that I had for the rest of my life, and it's vanished. So yeah, it's cool.
Thank you. Thank you. Would anyone like to?
Can I just say something in response to that, Vicky?
Yeah.
I think there's such a key in those words. It wasn't something I was trying to fix.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something about that, isn't there? That when we just forget that that's our problem and get interested in something else, lo and behold, we wake up one day and we discover that problem no longer exists. I remember when years ago I came across that quote from Einstein, which is, we cannot solve a problem at the same level of consciousness that it was created, or something like that. And when I first heard that, I thought what that meant was, what he meant was presuming to know what Einstein meant. And I assumed what he meant was that when our consciousness shifts, expands, or we see a deeper truth, then we find solutions for things that are problematic and unsolvable from another perspective. But then when I started to understand something about the principles and to see how insight actually worked, I saw that that's not usually how it plays out. It's not that we find the solution to what we thought the problem was. It's that we wake up one day and we discover the problem only existed in the realm of thought. It wasn't a real problem. It was a thought problem. And from another perspective, we're no longer thinking that way, so it no longer exists in our world. And it just struck me that that was an example of that you're describing.
Yeah, and it works, Vicky. It's amazing what you're talking about. And it always comes, like, for me, 27 years of an eating disorder. I mean, I have Janine Roth's entire book volume. I've seen therapists and whatever, and developed that white knuckle control. And my focus was always on symptoms, diet and exercise, and CBT and doing this and that. But I got a measure of white knuckle control that was essential, so I didn't die. Almost did that a couple times because of it. But in one day, it was that puddle of snot and tears moment where I just had to give up, and everything downstream unraveled. It was like Ian said, here today, gone tomorrow, like that. And it was never a problem. And the answer was way upstream with that gestalt, that core belief. People have to like me so I don't get left behind. Oh, and what happened is, I'm okay if people leave me. I have myself. That's what I was actually looking for all along. And like that, like the Renaults, and all the symptoms, whether it's something mental, emotional, or something physical, that's where the radical remission of Anita Moorjani was. And our body is always trying to wake us up. It's always on our side, even to the point of death. It's trying to wake us up. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to say, what if our bodies always act out of love? And that talks to what's been brought up. We have some more questions. Estelle, yes.
Hello. Just a practical question for tomorrow morning, back to school. Mathilde has to wear a mask at school, and she feels very uncomfortable with the mask during the day. She says she can't breathe well or whatever. Anyway, so she's listening, and would you have any advice to give her so she can deal with it?
Oh my goodness, Stephanie.
How old is your daughter?
Yeah, Mathilde is 9 years old.
Yeah, That's my turn.
I was talking to you, Lisa.
And what I can say is that my children have had to wear masks. I mean, they've barely been at school. They've been at school 8 weeks in the last year, but we've been wearing masks in Israel for a year. But surprisingly, teachers have their own opinions in the classroom about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I don't know whether you need a strategy today, and perhaps tomorrow you'll see what plays out. And in the moment, something else might become apparent, because I know that that's what's happened with my children as well. That they each have their own opinion about a mask. My children are a bit older, but they each have their own opinion about masks, and in the moment, different things happen in the class. So we could come up with a strategy that's very intellectually derived, and we don't know what's going to be tomorrow, and we don't know what's going to be in the classroom. So I would say in the moment, you may be surprised.
Hey, Mathilde, are you there, Mathilde?
You?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
So do you love school? What do you love about school? Is there something fun about school that you really like?
Yes.
Yeah? And you get to go tomorrow, is that it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And what's the biggest thing you're looking forward to?
Seeing my friends.
Oh, isn't that the best? Do you have a lot of friends?
Yes.
Yeah. And what do you love about seeing them?
What do you like about seeing your friends, Mathilde? Mathilde, just answer. She's listening.
She's listening. Yeah, very good. Well, think about what your friends and what it is you love about tomorrow, and how you want to have fun tomorrow. Have you ever had fun dressed up in different clothes?
She's off.
Okay, yeah. So just it's interesting because we can get engaged in conversations about what we do not want. We can get into conversations about what we do not want, even with our children, who tell you what they don't want, what they don't like about this. And you could continue that conversation, which means you can help them to put more attention and consciousness on unwanted. And law of attraction will bring you more unwanted. It will bring you more thinking about it. It will bring you more related thoughts on the same frequency. And so you will see, yes, there's a lot of things that I'm made to do that I do not want to do, especially this mask. And this mask is very uncomfortable. And I don't want to be in school with this mask on and all of that. So as the more we do that, and by the way, it doesn't matter which direction you go. You can go into the, oh, but the mask is, we can think positive. Oh, but the mask is great. And you can do this. It's the same thing, right? It is still an attention on an unwanted thing. And Ian said about, Einstein, we cannot solve the problem in the same frequency in which we're talking about the problem. We are tuned to the channel of unwanted. And, child comes and is tuned to the channel of unwanted. And you can speak to them from the channel of what is wanted instead. That is a different channel. And the solution bears no resemblance to the problem. We don't actually need to solve the problem to live in heaven. You do not have to fix hell in order to live in heaven. We are right now in heaven and in hell, and you get to pick whichever part of that you want to focus on. All possibilities are right now. both a life of hell and a life of heaven is available to you in this moment. All possibilities are available right now, and you can focus anywhere you like. And as we focus apart, like wearing this mask and I don't want to wear this mask, we can take ourselves to hell, or we can focus on what aspects of this, like tomorrow going to school and I get to see my friends and how much fun that's going to be. And that would take in a different direction.
Thanks,
Oh,
Dominic.
sorry, you're muted.
Anyone else? Or
I'd
want to come
applaud
back?
it if it wasn't awkward. That was great, Dominic.
Did you want to come back, Estelle?
No, it was just to say thank you very much for the reminder. Yes, well, focus on something positive, something that she likes. Yeah, I'll explain to her. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Britt.
Hi, thank you very much. I joined a little late, so I missed the beginning, but I've appreciated all the questions and all the shares that everyone's spoken to. Something that's formulating that I'm recognizing what I was doing is through Dominic's amazing work and through the 3 principles. And I've been, in the last month, something in me shifted, and I feel that shifted in a good way. And I haven't been as focused on trying to fix and trying to solve and trying to get answers as I had previously. And so I've just been noticing myself feeling so in alignment and just appreciating more and more and more. And doing things in my life that I wouldn't have done before, and just enjoying my time, enjoying my space, enjoying nature, and just absolutely feeling it, not just intellectually enjoying it, but actually feeling it with my body. But in listening to Anita Moorjani's book, something that I feel like I started doing, and I'm just still formulating this as I'm speaking, but I think I was so focused on feeling and understanding who I am, but on the spiritual side. So this spiritual essence that breathes me and allows me to digest my food, and really understanding and feeling that. And in a way, I think I was looking at this form or this body as something I just need to ignore. And that's not who I am. I'm the spiritual essence. But what's kind of hitting me right now is I know I'm both, but the appreciation for this body is something I think I've just been overlooking. And like actually appreciating the form of this, of myself. Because I think so much of what I was thinking I had to understand or to get to, or was trying to get to, which is still the intellect, was just this spiritual being. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And I was kind of just shunning and blocking off the human experience as this is wrong, this is bad, I need to get back to my spiritual essence, and that's who I am. And so most recently, I've just been appreciating the body, and I have some symptoms in my ear, my arm, and my hand, and just appreciating the actual physicalness of those body parts, and realizing that I'm both, and I can't live in that spiritual essence all the time, but living in alignment and with happiness and love and joy and peace and appreciating, I think, is part of what has gotten to me where I am. So I just wanted to share that, and didn't know if any of you had anything to say about that, of like the actual physical body and the spiritual essence from a health perspective.
Can I share something really cool?
Yes, please.
It was one of my points that I was going to get to, and Julie asked you. She wants to hear my other. I've kind of covered all the other things, but this one I see, especially since the Foundations of Health thing, I see the perfection of how it works more and more. And I'll give you a couple of examples because I collected it. It's like calculus. It all works the same. But here's one. So hypothyroidism is like every year there's more and more people diagnosed with hypothyroidism, underactive thyroid. And so many people go to their doctor because, you know, the symptoms are not pleasant and they want to have more energy and they want their metabolism better and they want to be more, you know, like there's all the symptoms. They go to their doctor and they'll do a blood test and, oh, you have an underactive thyroid, so we'll give you this medication to boost it up again. Well, part of the fight or flight response, you know, you have a couple different ones, but I'll keep it short as possible. The pathway of the fight or flight result, one is cortisol, the HPA axis, and one is adrenaline. And I'm just being very generic in terms. Okay, so the one that gives you that, you know, the thing that pushes the kid out of the way of the car, the thing that, you know, you jump out of the way of the rattlesnake on the pathway, and it happens before you think it. It's adrenaline fueled. Well, one of the major building blocks of adrenaline is an amino acid called tyrosine. So if you're innocently abusing the fight or flight response, as we all do, you know, whether it's like you don't like the coworker or your mother-in-law or you're in a bad relationship, or you're just constantly trying to be someone who you are not, as was in my case, or just the daily life ping ding brrr, and we're always like this, you know, like this. Well, it's no wonder tyrosine is fueling that, you know, it's being prioritized for adrenaline all day long, every day. Tyrosine is also an important building block for our thyroid hormone. So when we're living under this chronic fight or flight and duress, well, it works actually perfectly because you're prioritizing building blocks for the fight or flight response, and other things are being put on the back burner. You know, it also kind of screws up your hormones. I could talk about that too, but this is what's such a miracle to me and why it's all working perfectly, because after a period of high stress, your thyroid level gets lower, right? And what happens? You're tired. You don't feel like eating as much or your metabolism gets slow and you put on weight, and you know, the things that make you want to slow down naturally, it's actually works perfectly because your body wants you to rest and recuperate. So the low thyroid, and it comes back up again, we go to the doctor and want to falsely prop ourselves up so we could keep living the way we were, but the body's trying to go, okay, we just had a period of stress, slow down. You know, and it works so perfectly. And that's why people who go through the program often, you know, that I'm doing or work with, their thyroid levels come back up when they learn to see the world a little differently. Know that they can take their hands off the wheel. It's not your job. You're fired from trying to fix things and control things. And it's just like, I don't know if I'm saying it accurate, but it works so perfectly. You know, of course your thyroid's low. Your body wants you to rest, and it'll come back up on its own. You know, it's a miracle.
It's amazing. Thank you.
I know, it's so cool. Was that a good example?
Yeah, no, and I think this all started from being in super fight or flight, and I've noticed my system completely calming down. From the little things, like I'm in a new home and I'll hear a noise at night. And normally, previously, I'd be like, oh my gosh, and the body would be in fight or flight. And I'm just like, oh, it's just a noise. It's, you know, it's just, I notice my body and my mind and the thoughts and the reactions just coming down, which is light years ahead of where I was previously with trying to understand and fix and change.
Can I just share something as well in response to that? One of the most powerful ideas that I learned in my homeopathic training was the idea that what we think of as disease is actually the cure in progress. And I remember really how that was such a stretch when I first encountered that idea. It was like, whoa, it was so far from how I'd been thinking about disease up until that point, and yet it made sense. I didn't fully understand it at all, but it made sense to me. It rang true somewhere. And when you think of it now in terms of, from the three principles understanding, we talk about universal mind, an intelligence behind all of life, that's in all of life also. And well, that's still true, whether your body is fully healthy or whether your body has symptoms. That intelligence is at work 100% of the time. And it does something for us when we change our relationship to what we would think normally of, when we have symptoms, we think it's something that's gone wrong. It's something that shouldn't be happening. I should be over it by now. What the hell's wrong with me? When we think of it that way, it's a limiting and debilitating way of approaching it. When we engage with the body from a different standpoint, we say, well, okay, there's pain, maybe there's inflammation, something's hurting, or I'm tired. But supposing that intelligence was at work behind that, like Karen was saying, that maybe this is the cure in progress. And all I got to do is kind of listen into it deeply enough and respond accordingly, so I can start moving in the direction of health, because it knows what it needs me to do. I don't need to know that. I just need to listen in deeply enough so I can start to follow its nudges. And what I've discovered is that anyone who's willing to run that experiment, just like become a participant rather than a victim of what's happening in your body. As soon as you're willing, you've got this encyclopedia, this living library available to you that will begin to inform you in your daily life immediately. It's so responsive. As soon as we give it the opportunity, it starts to respond and to show us what we need to do or what we need to stop doing. Most often it's in the latter category. Things just start to become visible and clear to us that were previously invisible. And in that way, we can tap into the inner healer that exists within for all of us.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we've got 3 more questions. One's in the comment and 2 have got their hands raised. So we're coming up to, we're about 7 minutes away from the top of the hour. So we'll give sort of one person answers, let's say, to the next 3 questions, and hopefully we can fit them all in. So Karen, you're first.
Hi. I'll be quick. I just want to say a big thank you to Karen, because 30 years ago, my husband went off to fight in the first Gulf War, and I had terrible, terrible anxiety. And my thyroid levels were up and down like a horse draws, really. Within about 6 weeks, I had 6 different tests, and they were all different results. And I could never figure out why. Nobody could ever tell me why. So thank you. You've just explained it all to me really well. I really appreciate that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Insight on demand. I love that. Next one, Nadine. Yes, hello.
Hi, thank you all so much for sharing your wisdom, and it's super helpful. I just had a little question, because I'm quite new to the 3 principle learning or conversation, and I'm very excited about it, because it was my cousin who got me into it, and I feel like she just kind of dumped this massive gift on my lap. But I noticed that sometimes, because I get kind of excited about it, I start to talk about it a lot to other people, and then I kind of realize, like, oh, I can't always quite put into words what the 3 principles is, or even just how noticing it affects me or something. I don't know. And I didn't know if anyone had any, like, I don't know, advice, or if they'd been through the same thing, or yeah, words of wisdom.
I have good news Nadine, the good news is it's a temporary phase, which we could call it the evangelical phase or the missionary position, perhaps. I don't know. But it's a common experience. We're so enthused about it because it's wonderful and it's amazing and it's life-changing. And of course, everybody needs to know about this, right? But of course they don't, and they're not interested for the most part. So after a while, you realize that some people are susceptible and receptive, and a lot of people are not. And what you also discover is that as your understanding deepens, it's just your lived experience that impacts people more than anything else. You know, that when it impacts on your life in a beneficial way, which it will inevitably, and probably already has, it changes something inside of you, and that's visible to people, and they feel it in your presence. And some of those people will get curious and they'll ask you, well, what are you on? What are you doing? What, you know? And then you can have a nice conversation. And other people will just enjoy being around you and they won't even need to know why.
Thank you. Yeah, that is what I feel like when I am just kind of present or there with people, somehow it does just kind of impact. And it's when I start to go into kind of preaching mode, in a way, that that I kind of notice within myself, like, oh, okay, maybe it's good just to kind of be and not to feel like I need to influence or help people or anything. Yeah, so thank you for knowing. Helpful to know, Sophie.
Yeah, I would say with that too is that you are teaching by the clarity of your example. You are and you know, this is the easiest thing in the world is this about the principles, because the principles are true. So wow, a lot of the other stuff that you've may have known about or whatever is like, you know, it's an idea, it's a theory. But in here, like, it's true. And when you see it, this is why it's all about you. When you see that you are connected to an infinite intelligence, you are creating your own experience in your mind with thought. And when you like see that and you know the truth of that, that's an insight into human beings. So now knowing that, it's just true. It's true. So when someone else is talking, you don't need to explain it because you know what's true. But you could sometimes, in the way you talk, they might see that too, right? They might see that. And you'll come up with words and things to say to them, and then they'll come to know the truth of that as well. It would be like, I just discovered gravity and I can't wait to tell everybody. It's like, we're all living it, right? So it's on your side. Yeah, they'll see it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so the last question we had in a message from Adi, how do we know when it's time to take action to make an external change? How do I know when it's time to change work or relationships? Who would like to answer?
Go ahead.
You know when you know, and not a moment sooner.
And the part I would add to that is that that must be so. God is present and not silent. God is not unexpressed, right? So consciousness is always in expression. Thoughts become things. Thoughts are manifest. You experience your thinking. So it goes from formless into thought forms, and thought forms which are actually experienced via senses. Right? It literally experienced via senses in the world, and that includes action. Right? So God is around and expressing. You will never be at one with God and remain still. You will never be in a state of harmony with all that you are and remain actionless. It's not possible. That is an eternal consciousness that has a flicker of an eye, 100 years of your life to express a unique aspect of itself. And if you believe that you will become in harmony with that and sit at home quietly, it's never going to happen. When you connect with that consciousness, it wants nothing but expression from you. And as you are in harmony with that, you will be in action in your life. That will express through your words and through your movement. That is what lives you. It only wants expression. The only reason there is no action is your resistance to it, your doubt about it. But as you move into harmony, don't worry about action and don't worry about why you're not taking action or any of that stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. And there we go, 1 minute after the top of the hour. So I would just love to thank you all for joining, and especially big thanks to our panel. This has been a dream come true for Anne and myself. Anne, would you like to unmute yourself and say something? Where have you? I think Anne's got her, it's off on the camera. Let's see. Anne, are you around? Okay.
She lost her mic. It looks like she has no mic.
Yeah, I know. What happened to the mic? How do you lose your mic on Zoom?
It probably got disconnected or something.
Anne, I'm calling you. Calling Anne. Okay. So Anne would like to say thank you, I'm sure. Maybe she's going to send me a message. But thank you really so much. And I know we've had almost 250 people register for this event. So thank you to everyone who's chipped in with a share and a question, and of course to the panel. Well, it's because Anne lives in the country, so sometimes the weather gets in the way or something. Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. And we will be sending out the recording to everybody on this call and to the people who registered. And also, I did get some questions about where you can find the people on the panel. So we'll put their websites and contact details in the email as well. So thank you so much, and take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
everyone.
Bye. Thanks. This was lovely.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Have a beautiful evening.
Thank you so much.
Or night.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Been a great conversation. Thanks for everybody's input.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.